broken bones and coughs and so forth, it's these cosmetic treatments that they're working with their patients or our clients would be on Saturdays and evenings, but rarely. We are open currently till 8 by appointment only on 3 nights a week, and we're not always, not everyone's working those. And we're open from 9 till 1 on Saturdays, and sometimes a little bit later again by appointment only. So we're not requiring the high traffic type thing. Again, a highly commercial area where you're dealing with walk-ins and things like that. I'd say 80 to 85% of our client base with all of our treatments and services is pre-booked appointments, and usually they are pre-booked for months in advance. So it's not a wait and, gee, we hope we have somebody today. Usually we have a full book and a full schedule depending on the day of the week. Was there another area that kind of was a conscious thought? Okay.
That we touched base when we talked a couple weeks ago that we talked about.
Ms. Handel, where are you presently located?
I'm located at 619 Campbell Station Road here in Farragut, and you've heard of Mellow Mushroom. So we're in the same shopping center right behind Walgreens. We've been there for 11 years.
If I could add a comment, in the interest of full disclosure, Ms. Handel is a neighbor of mine at Renaissance. She is a second-generation owner who purchased a unit from another client who bought it from us a couple of years ago. I wasn't aware of her plight until I got an email from her architect that said, hey, we have a zoning issue, and then that's what subsequently I called Ruth, and I said, all right, I don't understand what exactly is happening here, and we went through the definitions of personal service and professional service, and I said, okay, I think I understand what's happening, and so that's how I became involved. It is a complicated issue, but I think it makes perfectly darn good sense when you look at what Ms. Handel does and you look at the professionals that she employs, and then you look at our ordinance, and you look at an ordinance that was essentially started in 1980 and has been revised over the years, but there hasn't really been a reason to update our ordinances without an applicant coming forward and say, hey, your ordinances are kind of dated, you may want to revise them and try to bring them into the year 2011, and that's where we are today. With that being said, I'll open to any questions. There was a little bit of misunderstanding, I think, a couple of weeks ago or last week at the Board, Mayor, and Alderman meeting, and I did want to clarify that, and I guess unless there's any other questions, I'm happy to stand down.
I guess the primary question I'd have is we're using, I guess you can antiquated word beautician, and you use cosmetologist or
yeah.
or whatever that is. That the right word?
Yeah, yeah. We've been called many things, hairdressers, beauty operators. That's a really lovely
But as things
one.
are written now, it's kind of like a black and white kind of thing.
The cosmetologist, quite frankly, that's the legal term, as far as the licensure. So,
sure.
Yes.
There's a long list of things that certainly seem to have a medical relationship, and but it seems to be the hang-up is this one piece of it that gets back to, I guess, hair care and nails.
That's
primarily.
Right. Yeah.
Rather than black and white, what percentage of the business service is that? Is that 5 or 10%, or is that 50%?
Well,
what's going to be your revenue stream?
Yeah, Tom Hale asked me that last week, and I said,
yeah,
that's okay.
I didn't hear that.
You weren't here. I know. I can appreciate that. Well, I struggled with trying to come up with a number because I don't divide it in that. And how I answered that for Tom was kind of looking at, first of all, I want to say my current business is similar to, but obviously I'm moving to a new location. I am reducing my space. There are changes because my industry is changing and I'm changing and looking at what's profitable. What do I want to do? What's my image, my business image? So I'll admit there are certain things we're doing right now, and we are focusing on the medical side even more so because that's a very dominant area. It's growing much faster than almost any other area of my industry right now. So from a business perspective, it's a great area to look at, and I have physicians that are wanting to do that with me. I have physicians that are not, they'll be the first to admit, they're not good at doing this cosmetic medical spa stuff on their own. They are relying on some of us who have been doing the marketing and the developing of a client base and the image for many years. So it's a beautiful little business blend for everyone involved, quite frankly. But getting back to your question, I can safely say that 10 to 12% of my business is retail. The rest is remaining, the service side of it. How I answered this last week with Tom Hale, it was if you're looking at dollars per client or dollars per ticket, the high dollars are the Botox. And it is, those medical things that are quite costly. The permanent cosmetics can be $200, $350 an hour for someone who comes in for permanent makeup. And then we look at the Botox. Boy, that's, can be higher than that. Don't want to get anybody in trouble.
You have a significant amount of your clientele that come in just for the hair and the nails.
Say again?
You have a significant amount of the clientele that come in just
by
for that.
traffic, right. Currently, our highest, traffic is not devoted to the medical side by persons. But as far as by dollars, that's my point, is when you're looking at, a brow wax or a lip wax that's $12, that's one client at $12. However, you look at one client for the other side of it, it's quite a difference. $800 it could be for an hour for a Botox session with the physician. And quite frankly, what he wants to do is have a more permanent location and have the equipment that he has spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on in one location, so he can, focus on that in the West, Farragut West area. And therefore, we plan to expand that and give him the right to do that and still be able to do the other things that he's doing in the medical field. He's got quite a few things, going on with his background. He's a medical practitioner, but he's also, I'd say for the last 6 or 7 years, been focusing more and more in this area. And many physicians who can see this and want to, it's certainly a financial advantage for them if they are good at it and talented.
I have two questions, one for Noah and one for Ruth. Ruth, I'll start with you since I'm close. If we change this to medical spa, what will be the impact on other businesses or other areas of Farragut?
The way I look at this is you look at a medical building, for example, and within office districts we allow professional service, which includes medical. That's inclusive of the 5-story building that's on Parkside Drive. So it's all a matter of scale. So I don't really see it any real difference than that. If you have a very large-scale medical spa, from my perspective, you're going to have a similar impact as a very large-scale medical facility that's allowed within an office district. So I don't know, does that answer your question? Because everything's a matter of scale. I do think that with regards to the hair treatments and the nails and everything, and even though we're laughing or chuckling about the definition of beautician, the reason for using that term is there's actually a real logical reason for it, is because you find it in the dictionary. You can pick up an old Webster's dictionary and everybody knows what it means. It's not, and it is a very precise meaning rather than having a more broad-based meaning. But I think the issue is that the medical spa may be inclusive of these other things that are traditionally personal services, because you can hardly turn around in this town without hitting a nail place. So you don't want it exclusively to be a nail place with a little bit of medical aspect of it, because the turnaround with a nail place is a lot higher. You have different, it is more, it's a commercial, more type use type thing. And like she was talking about with the waxing of the eyebrows, which just makes my eyes water thinking about it, that, is a quicker turnaround. So I don't know if I've answered your question or if I've danced around it or just given you
you told me
to look at it.
You told me earlier that a physician's office can go into Renaissance. Is that correct?
Because that is medical.
Okay.
Yeah, basically the professional services are allowed in office districts, and that's when you look at the 5-story office building and the 3-story office building we have on Parkside Drive. That zoning district is there because the Sweetbriar residents got together with the Farragut Land Partners and said, we don't want commercial backing up to us, we want office. And so that was zoned to office to accommodate those residents' wishes because they wanted the lower impacts of an office district. Even though it's a large facility, the fact is it's really quiet out there at 8 o'clock at night. It's really quiet out there on Sunday afternoons and kind of things when you're using your yards and things like that. So does that answer your question, or did I completely go around it and not answer you?
Okay, Noah said in the early part of this conversation there was something concerning the residents behind the Renaissance, and when you built the area, did they have any concerns about your traffic and such for the buildings?
Oh, I think residents always have concern when they're adjacent to any kind of office or commercial use. I think what made the most sense there is in Renaissance, there's multiple phases, and as you get further away from Kingston Pike, it made sense for us, and it appeased the residents for that area to be O1 instead of C1, because I think when I talk to residents, anytime we're involved in a project, first thing I do is go start knocking on doors. As painful as it may be, sometimes I do it, and it's okay. And I think I'm pretty good at it now, and I can usually address folks' concerns. But I think most often they're concerned about a restaurant. They're concerned about a retail store that's going to have long hours. They're concerned about delivery trucks showing up at 3 a.m., kind of like what we talked about at the unnamed grocery store on Parkside Drive. Those are their concerns when you start dealing with C1 zoning. The O1 zoning was a good compromise that said, hey, this is going to be a less intensive use of businesses. I hate to use the word less intensive use of commercial because I don't want to confuse business commercial, because we got a C1 zoning and an O1 zoning. But basically that's the history behind that. And it kind of fit our needs, because I felt like as it got further away from Kingston Pike, those individuals, the exposure, the traditional retail exposure that those folks would want couldn't be met in this area where Stacy is. And quite frankly, after getting to know Stacy and talking to Stacy, even after she purchased in Renaissance, she didn't want to be in the mix of things. She's kind of in the mix of things now. And where she is now, she has parking issues, and it's hard for her clients to get in and out. And Stacy, correct me if I'm wrong, but Stacy says, I don't want to be there. I kind of want to be a destination, and my clients will know where I am, and I work on appointment, and these are the things. I don't want to be in the mix of a traditional strip center. And matter of fact, last week I think one of the aldermen brought up, well, hey, isn't this pretty common in office buildings? Well, I don't know. Maybe in downtowns it is, but it seems like it would make sense when you see some of these services provided in an office building. I'm talking about a high-rise, like a downtown office building. So, Ron, I hope that answered at least your second question. I can't remember what your first question is that Ruth answered, but nevertheless.
Or have any residents expressed any resistance of any kind to this?
No.
Actually, as far as traffic, on a high-level medical spa, is very little traffic. Appointments, treatments are long, very expensive.
And and what I was.
Types of things in the same space.
Well, I think
Works great.
I think what Stacy saw, and after I got to meet Stacy and we started talking about this, is she saw, we're being classified right there next to a dry cleaners, and I said, well, yeah, I understand that's how it is in the definitions. And I said, well, explain to me how you're different, and that's how she's kind of explained to us how she's different. She is different than a dry cleaner. It's not where you just drop off and you pick up and go. Her clients are there for a long time. I said, well, okay, one of the things that the Planning Commission is going to ask you is, how are you different than a Supercuts? And she goes, well, this is how I'm different. And she's kind of explained that to us tonight. And so I think she is different, and it is probably a hybrid that didn't exist when our ordinances were written.
And I want to say, too, a Supercuts, the corporation would never go in an office because they rely on the walk-by traffic.